Welcome back to Media7's 2011 Roundup with Wallace Chapman, Michelle Accord and Matt Heath. I'd just like to say, sharks. They're back. They're back on the front page of the New Zealand Herald. Be very afraid. We'll be watching. Anyway, to get us rolling in the deep, Sam Mulgrew has the sauce.
Nothing much happening. Has anything improved there, Greg?
He's busy, Mark.
Technology changed the media experience this year, but thanks to strong reporting from the likes of Hamish Clark, it mostly made sense.
Fire suit, is there someone under there? Yes.
He took us inside Christchurch's cathedral right after the tower came down. Then, just 2.5 weeks later, via YouTube, thousands of Japanese showed us every possible angle from the events of March 11. Ongoing investigations by The Guardian into press phone hacking at Murdoch's papers and Al Jazeera's extensive coverage of the Arab Spring brought light to dark places. Our media trundled through the year. It echoed claims from the IRB that people were watching the Rugby World Cup in more countries that actually exist. In the absence of the late and much lamented Paul the Oracular Octopus, Auckland University statistician Dr. David Scott had an 87.5% success rate in predicting match winners. Since the birth of the internet, American perceptions of press accuracy, impartiality, and independence have plummeted. I'm just hoping the Yanks know the Onion news service is satirical.
In the year's most significant statistical study, researchers discovered this spring that 96% of humans would rather be a singing, dancing animatronic bear.
But this isn't a joke.
There's something wrong in this country when gays can serve openly in the military, but our kids can't openly celebrate Christmas or pray in school.
Rick Perry wants to be president. Merry Christmas, kids.
Well, Wallace Chapman, we've talked a little bit about happy things already. Were there media lowlights for you?
Yeah, happy feet.
Happy feet.
Yeah, I mean to that, eh? No, it really was. I mean, being in the media and being in an organisation and working for, on behalf of a large company as well. And being a member of the public, I can't see the gravitas and I can't see the extended and prolonged coverage that something like a penguin.
I was going to say this human interest, but clearly not human.
No, well, that's right. It's clearly not human, and I guess my interests extend far beyond happy feet, other things. But I couldn't see why there was such a fixation on that. The other thing was in the middle of the year there was this wall-to-wall coverage for 2 weeks of this thing called. In America they call it the Freedom Burger because it's the sort of burger that terrorists would love to get their hands on because it denotes freedom. It's called the KFC Double Down. So I thought, no, bugger this. 2 weeks of Double Down burger coverage from our most esteemed journalists. I'm going to go to a local KFC, sit down with sunglasses and have one. So here I go, I walk into a KFC, put my sunglasses on, order a Double Down, this bunless burger, start to take a bite, and an old journalist friend, "Hey Wallace!" I goes, "Hey Tony." He goes, "How's life?" And I go, "Good." "How's work?" "Good." And there was a sort of Seinfeld moment where here I was just wanting to have this Double Down burger. But I guess...
Well, it could be worse. It could be like Matt Heath, who ate 8 of them on the air.
Yeah, I did. But I actually followed the Double Down burger for a long time. I'm a big fan of junk food to a kind of extreme level. So I followed it from its release in America to its release in Australia. And before it even came to New Zealand, I bought a couple of Works burgers and tried to put together my own one. So I come from a different school where I look at junk food in the same way some people look at music or something, or movies. I'm very into it. And so for me, for this whole media thing to be just disrespecting food that I like, it seemed really odd. It seemed like an unnecessary attack on like what I want to eat. I don't attack what other people want to eat. I don't have a problem. People can eat whatever they want. But for me, that was like, I am so excited about this thing. And I think it really backfired because for people hassling it, because really in the end, it's just a delicious piece of food.
No, it's not.
Well, I mean...
It's not a delicious piece of food.
What would you describe as a delicious piece of food?
A chickpea salad.
We see exactly, and there's different strokes for different folks. You see exactly, for me, a chickpea salad is a problem. But a double down, admittedly, I have to admit, after 8 double downs, it was a disaster.
Where's the optimum? How many is good? How many of them are good?
3. The first 3 were great.
So the other 5 are just...
That's outrageous.
But I was really making a point. I was really making a point with that 8 double downs, and it was the setup to it that was saying, you can't eat that. Don't do that.
It's glutton and greed, is what it is.
Well, yes.
Michelle, you could adjudicate for us here.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm
Surely
a bit
you
busy
weren't
right now,
interested in this sort of ridiculous media phenomenon. I mean, the amount of free press that got.
It was outrageous. Yeah. I think it's a bit like Happy Feet, and Happy Feet should have been a burger, and is for something somewhere right now. It's entered the food chain in its appropriate place, I'm sure. But I think in a world where the euro is collapsing and governments are changing because of Facebook and Twitter, people can't cope with those ideas that are so big, and the media's not helping them get their heads around those big ideas. So you're stuck with a penguin and a burger with no bun.
Because they were the Happy Feet thing. I actually like the Happy Feet thing as well, and maybe it's because I've got small kids.
My idea of making him a burger.
The thing about the Happy Feet thing is it's not a huge amount of the news. It's a little bit of the news, but the thing is, it's a lovely. It teaches kids empathy for something, and it's a really nice situation in the news. And I was like you, I hated the Happy Feet thing. I was sitting in front of the news, and most of the time I'm a typical dad. I haven't been a dad for long, but I'm a typical dad where I just abuse everything. I'm annoying, and I was doing that on the Happy Feet, and then my wife just said, "Look at the kids. That's the only time they were embraced," and it was this real empathy thing. They really cared about it, and it was such a sort of beautiful thing. I sort of get it now. What I get about it is kids love penguins, and this penguin's become a personality, and it's an animal, and instead of watching horrible stuff, let's have a lot of the horrible stuff on the news. The news should probably be 90% horrible stuff, because we need to know that. But there's nothing wrong with a little bit of penguin for kids.
You completely convinced me, but I'm going to go to the big issues. Michelle, the Arab Spring and Occupy, was it the year of social media?
I think so. I think
Facebook revolution.
Yeah, I think that democracy means something different from what it has meant in the past. People didn't turn up to the ballot box in New Zealand, but they have in other places, obviously, but in Egypt. But it's grassroots stuff. This is social media stuff. I mean, Twitter was the way that people found out whether their families were still alive in Christchurch, and it's really in the Occupy Wall Street thing. We were in New York when the riots happened in the UK, and I remember distinctly being told by people there this would never happen in New York. We came home and the Occupy Wall Street movement happened. It can happen anywhere because people are really connecting on that really basic street level democratically. Yeah.
In terms of protest, things don't happen just by itself. And this has actually been going quite a long time. And I think that, with all due respect of the social media thing, it's not just social media. This has been going on since 2007, 2008. In fact, there was a movement called the April 6th movement when an organisation of youth were brutally crushed in 2008. So has had a long lead-up time. So it wasn't just that one guy protesting and set himself alight in Tunisia. Things have a lead-up time, and things like Twitter and that type of thing, they aid and help. But as Noam Chomsky said, we've had pamphlets for a long time. Communication isn't just Twitter and social media.
And yet, in our own election, as you say, Michelle, we did not have a great turnout. Matt, why was that? Because it got the usual coverage, didn't it? Was that the problem?
It's kind of weird because there's two things about it. Like I went down to the Occupy Auckland thing today because it was a sunny day. I thought I'd go and check it down. I hadn't looked around, and I was talking to some of those people about it, which was kind of a bizarre experience. And I think it's because I accidentally took down the News Talk ZB microphone instead of the Hauraki one. So they were quite aggro, and I couldn't work out why it was for a while because I walked through there and then someone just really insulted me, and then I talked to some other people, which was fine. And I was sort of saying, well, and they were saying, well, mainstream politics doesn't cover us. And I said, well, 48% of the people that voted, whatever it is, close enough to that for national. And they were saying, yeah, but the democracy doesn't do it. We didn't vote. None of us voted. And so I think, it's easy to people say, the non-vote is lazy. Sometimes you can do a really aggressive non-vote, which is something that, like you can aggressively go, and your decision is to go, I'm not going to do anything because I don't agree with it. So I wonder if there's a bit of that. But also, I don't know, in France how they don't allow you to have polls 2 weeks out before the election. I think we need some of that here because the polls start to dictate what people do. So you're 2 weeks out, you're told that the National are going to win, Labor doesn't have a freaking chance, and so you go by that.
It's interesting, yeah.
So I think people, and all the coverage is devoted to the polls, and they don't have a chance, and all this blah 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 blah, and then it becomes a fait accompli. It plays out how the polls play out, because that's what people expect. And I
Although
think
there were a few surprises, most notably the teapot tapes. I mean, what did you make of that, Wallace? Because that, to be honest, that's my media lowlight of the year. Yeah. Seeing the police seeking to enter the newsrooms of news organisations 1 week out from a general election. I thought it was appalling. To solve a political problem.
I agree with you entirely. It was a definite low light, and I mean, if only sort of Don Brash and Peter Dunn with their herbal tea and cappuccino, you know, could have replaced the dreadful saga that was the latest teapot tape. No, I thought it was a low light, and and also too, I was talking to a senior journalist, a very esteemed guy in his 60s, early 70s, and he was saying that he was actually astonished that it did not come out beforehand. He said if he would have been a young journalist, he would have got hold of that tape and damn well published it. And I was actually very disappointed that it did not come out, Russell.
And the only thing that was as bad as that was the Herald being banned from Parliament for a week just in the lead up to the election because they published the photograph of the guy coming down from the public gallery. And really what the Herald should be banned from is not covering Parliament but covering sharks at sea.
Covering sharks, indeed. And on that note, we do actually have to go. I'd just like to say one thing personally is that the media highlight for me this year was Hamish Clark's work reporting the Christchurch earthquake in February.
And Nikki Hager and John Stevenson, their good work as well.
And I was about to say that.
And applaud for them as well this year.
Indeed, yeah. And if we saw more of that, I'd be happy. But that is our show for this week and this year. Thanks to Wallace Chapman, Michelle Court and Matt Heath. Thanks also to all our guests this year, and of course to you for watching. We'll be back in the first week of February. So until then, goodbye, Merry Christmas, and beware of the sharks.